Today we will review the voluntary offer letter to homeowner, which effective November 25, 2020, is one of the General Land Office's required documents for voluntary buyout or acquisition programs. A hyperlink to the voluntary offer letter to homeowner can be found on the Texas General Land Office website at recovery.texas.gov. To locate the document, go to the local buyout and acquisition program page, which is linked below in the description section of this video. Scroll down to the right side checklist section and to the supplemental documentation and click on the voluntary offer letter to homeowner link. Once you click the link, your computer will download the fillable document. Please note you will need Microsoft Word to view and edit this document. Voluntary buyout and acquisition programs are required to inform the property owner in writing of what it believes to be the fair market value of the property. After a qualified review appraiser reviews the appraisals associated with the acquisition and prepares a written summary supporting the reviewer's estimate of fair market value, the subrecipient will use this information to create a written determination of just compensation that justifies the determined fair market value and the basis for the determination. The subrecipient will then update the GLO's duplication of benefits calculation form, which is described in a separate video, with the just compensation amount. Using the duplication of benefits calculation form, the subrecipient will reduce all duplicative assistance from the appraised value to arrive at the offer amount. The offer amount will then be presented to the homeowner in writing through the voluntary offer letter to homeowner, where the homeowner will have the opportunity to sign if they accept the offer. The offer letter is only for voluntary buyout or acquisition programs. In order to use this form, the following requirements must be met. No specific site or property needs to be acquired. The property to be acquired is not part of an intended, planned, or designated project area where all or substantially all of the property within the area is to be acquired within specific time limits. The subrecipient will not acquire the property if negotiations fail to result in an amicable agreement and the owner is so informed in writing. The subrecipient will inform the owner in writing of what it believes to be the market value of the property. For this video, we will use an example of a fictional applicant and location to give a sample of how to complete the letter. The first section of the voluntary offer letter to homeowner is the offer letter itself.
This is a guide form, therefore it should be altered so that the letter comes from the subrecipient and to meet the program's needs. To begin, the subrecipient should transfer the letter to their own letterhead and put the subrecipient name at the top of the form. Then input the date, the name of the program, and the full names of the property owners. Subrecipients should ensure that you list all of the property owners on the deed. The subrecipient should then complete the first line by filling in the property address to be bought out or acquired, explaining that they are eligible to participate in the buyout or acquisition program. The next paragraph describes that this is a completely voluntary program and the homeowner is not required to participate in the buyout. If the homeowner wishes to participate, they must agree on the purchase price of the property. An appraisal must be performed on the property to establish a fair market value, which can either be based on pre-disaster or post-disaster value of the home in accordance with the subrecipient's housing guidelines. The subrecipient should select the valuation methodology, either pre-storm or post-storm, in the drop-down box. Then, the subrecipient should input the appraised value of the structure and the appraised value of the land to equal the total appraised value. For example, the appraisal performed on your property establishes the pre-storm value of the improvements and structure at $120,000 plus the land at $30,000, equaling a total fair market value of $150,000. The letter then informs the homeowner that attached to the letter is the just compensation determination statement with more information on the basis for determination of the offer amount. The next paragraph is only applicable if the subrecipient has received additional assistance for the same purpose, and the offer amount must be reduced from the fair market value to avoid a duplication of benefit. This paragraph calculates the offer amount for the homeowner, reducing the potential duplication of benefit. For our example, the county put, because you received financial assistance from other sources, a duplication of benefits, or DOB, in the amount of $20,000 has been identified. The value of the structure, $120,000, minus the DOB, $20,000, plus the value of the land, $30,000, equals $130,000. Therefore, the final offer for your property is $130,000. The next paragraph is a note to the subrecipient, and if applicable to the homeowner, that the DOB is only adjusted against the appraised value of the structure. Therefore, when the DOB exceeds the appraised value for the structure, the final offer equals the appraised value for the land. For example, if the value of the structure is $40,000 minus a DOB of $60,000, that equals a $0 offer for the structure, but the value of the land is $15,000, so the offer value equals $15,000. For our example, the DOB did not exceed the offer letter on the house, so the subrecipient deleted this paragraph. The next paragraph is only applicable for programs that are offering incentives. If the program is not offering incentives, this paragraph should be deleted. If the program is offering incentives, this paragraph explains to the homeowner that in addition to the fair market value offer presented to them above for the valuation of the home, the homeowner is also eligible for additional housing incentive awards that may be presented in addition to the offer. It also notifies the subrecipient that the offer letter incentives attachment in his packet has more information. Subrecipients should attach the offer letter incentives attachment for the homeowner to select any incentives they may be interested in receiving. In our example, Rango County is going to offer incentives, so they deleted the note to delete the paragraph. The next paragraph tells the homeowner that if they are in agreement with the offer price and willing to sell the property and participate in the buyout or acquisition program, the letter must be signed and dated. It also states where the letter should be returned and the date by which they must return the letter. The template suggests a 2-week return date. The next paragraph explains that the offer value presented above is the gross amount due. All outstanding amounts due to achieve a clear title will be paid from the offer value, and if so, the final check amount will be less than the final offer letter presented. A closing statement must be provided to the homeowner at closing, itemizing each of these reductions. The subrecipient must then sign and title the form. Then there is a space provided for the applicant to sign and certify that they have read the offer letter and affirm that they voluntarily accept the appraised value as fair market value for the home. Since the form is for voluntary programs, if the homeowner chooses not to accept the offer, the subrecipient will not acquire the property. In our example, the homeowner chose to participate in the program, so both homeowners signed the form. A just compensation determination statement must be attached to the offer letter. The form provided is just a sample form and should be modified if necessary to fit the program's needs while describing the just compensation and method of determination. The just compensation statement should also be on the subrecipient letterhead, and the highlighted instructions to the subrecipient should be deleted. The first subrecipient should input their name and GLO contact number. Then the first line indicates that the subrecipient proposes to purchase the property and the address of the buyout or acquisition property. It also directs the homeowner to Attachment A for the lot description. The letter then lists all buildings, structures, and improvements that were included in the valuation of the structure of the land. For example, the following buildings, structures, and other improvements are included as part of the offer of just compensation: a 2-story, 1,800 square foot 4-bedroom house, 1-acre lot, and detached garage. Then, the letter states that the subrecipient has established just compensation, and the subrecipient should input the appraised fair market value listed on the first page of the voluntary offer letter to homeowner. Then the subrecipient should state the offer amount after the reduction in duplication of benefits previously listed in the offer letter. The letter then restates the offer amount. Then the letter details the basis for determination. The form then must be signed by the subrecipient elected official and dated. Attached to the just compensation determination statement must be the lot description and metes and bounds of the property as defined in the legal description in the local file and clearly identifying the property and its boundaries. See the example Rango County has provided with the legal description and metes and bounds map. The final section of the packet, titled Offer Letter Incentives, should only be included if homeowners will also be offered incentives according to the subrecipient's program housing guidelines. Please note, this section is specifically speaking to incentives that may be offered to homeowners in addition to the offer value in voluntary buyout and acquisition programs, not uniform relocation assistance that is offered to tenants and involuntary program applicants. Recipients of URA will have a different set of forms to complete for URA assistance. This letter is a sample and should be updated to coincide with the subrecipient's program's housing guidelines and the incentives that are outlined in the guidelines as eligible. For more information on incentives, see the Incentive Calculation Form instructional video. To begin, the subrecipient should transfer the letter to their own letterhead and input the subrecipient name at the top of the form. Then for our example, the subrecipient input the date, the name of the program, and the full deed name of the property owners. Ensure that you list all property owners on the deed. The letter begins by stating that in addition to the offer amount presented to the homeowner, they are eligible for additional housing incentive awards. Then the letter states the additional incentives that the homeowner may be eligible for.
The sample language provided details eligible relocation costs for relocation assistance, down payment assistance, and buyout incentives. The language also includes the requirements that must be met to receive these incentives. Subrecipients should delete all incentives that are not included in their program housing guidelines and update all language and monetary amounts to match their housing guidelines.
For our example, the subrecipient's guidelines include all three types of incentives that the homeowner may be eligible for. They updated all of the yellow highlighted language based off the monetary amounts listed in their housing guidelines, which for relocation assistance are capped at $10,000 for an existing home, $35,000 for a lot or new construction home, and $5,000 for temporary relocation and housing. Down payment assistance is not to exceed $35,000, and the cap for buyout incentives is the same at $35,000. For all incentives, the funding must be used within 3 months. The sample language states, the additional incentives that you are eligible for are the following. You are eligible for reimbursement of relocation costs of $10,000 for an existing home or $35,000 for a lot or newly constructed home, and $5,000 in temporary housing and temporary relocation costs. The amount of assistance will depend on the reasonable and justified need of the applicant for relocation costs. Then the letter explains eligible relocation incentive costs. Eligible relocation costs include transportation of the displaced person and personal property. Transportation costs for a distance beyond 50 miles are not eligible unless the agency determines that relocation beyond 50 miles is justified. Packing, crating, unpacking, and uncrating of the personal property. Disconnecting, dismantling, removing, reassembling, and reinstalling relocated household appliances and other personal property. For businesses, farms, or nonprofit organizations, this includes machinery, equipment, substitute personal property, and connections to utilities available within the building. It also includes modifications to the personal property, including those mandated by federal, state, or local law, code, or ordinance, necessary to adapt it to the replacement structure, the replacement site, or or the utilities at the replacement site, and modifications necessary to adapt the utilities at the replacement site to the personal property. Storage of the personal property for a period not to exceed 12 months unless the agency determines that a longer period is necessary. Insurance for the replacement value of the property in connection with the move and necessary storage. The replacement value of property lost, stolen, or damaged in the process of moving, not through the fault or negligence of the displaced person, his or her agent or employee, where insurance covering such loss, theft, or damage is not reasonably available. Other moving-related expenses that are not listed as ineligible under Section 24.301H as the agency determines to be reasonable and necessary. The reasonable cost of disassembling, moving, and reassembling any appurtenances attached to a mobile home such as porches, decks, skirting, and awnings which were not acquired, anchoring of the unit, and utility hookup charges. The reasonable cost of repairs and/or modifications so that a mobile home can be moved and/or made decent, safe, and sanitary. Lastly, the cost of a non-refundable mobile home park entrance fee to the extent it does not exceed the fee at a comparable mobile home park if the person is displaced from a mobile home park or the agency determines that payment of the fee is necessary to effect relocation. You will be required to furnish quotes, receipts, or contracts to calculate your final award for relocation incentives. The letter then goes on to explain down payment assistance. You are eligible to receive up to 100% of the required minimum down payment at an amount not to exceed $35,000. The amount of assistance will depend on the reasonable and justified need of the applicant and the price of the replacement home. As listed in the letter, the following requirements must be met to be eligible for the down payment assistance. Purchased a lot or are using a pre-owned lot located outside of a floodplain or to a lower risk area within the subrecipient's jurisdiction for construction of a new home. A construction date must be provided. Or the applicant purchased a newly constructed or existing home located outside the floodplain or a lower risk area in the subrecipient's jurisdiction. The applicant will be required to complete a 58.6 checklist on the new home or lot. Purchased homes must be considered decent, safe, and sanitary and will be required to pass the HQS inspection. Any cost associated with bringing your new residence up to the required standards is the responsibility of the homeowner. The funding must be used within 3 months. And household income must be at or below 120% of the area median income. The next section of the letter covers buyout incentives. You are eligible for up to $35,000 in additional assistance as a buyout incentive. The purpose of this incentive is to encourage maximum participation by property owners and remove as many properties as possible from high-risk areas. Incentive payments should assist the household with necessary funds to buy an existing home or construct a home on a newly purchased lot as applicable. Then the letter describes the requirements for buyout incentives. The following items must be met to be eligible for the buyout incentives. Purchased a lot or are using a pre-owned lot located outside of a floodplain or to a lower risk area within the subrecipient's jurisdiction for construction of a new home. A construction date must be provided. Or the applicant purchased a newly constructed or existing home located outside of the floodplain or a lower risk area in the subrecipient's jurisdiction. The applicant will be required to complete a 58.6 checklist on the new home or lot. The funding must be used within 3 months. And the applicant must provide documentation demonstrating the need for additional buyout incentive. The letter then restates that this is a voluntary program and the applicant does not need to pursue incentives in order to accept the buyout offer. However, if they would like to participate in the incentive program, they should select the incentives that they would be interested in applying for. Their options are the incentives that were listed above: relocation assistance, down payment assistance, buyout incentives, or they do not wish to participate in the incentive program. Subrecipients should delete any incentives from this list that are not offered in their program. For our example, the homeowners elected to participate in relocation assistance and buyout incentive. Finally, the homeowner certifies that they voluntarily elect to participate in the incentives program for the incentives that they have initialed above. They understand the requirements listed in the letter and will work with the subrecipient to furnish the required documents. Subrecipient should input their name in the highlighted field. The homeowners then print their name, sign, and date the letter. After receiving the signed offer letter and signed incentives letter, the subrecipient should work closely with the homeowners that have elected incentives to ensure all required documentation for incentives are completed prior to closing, in addition to the documentation they must complete for the closing. We hope you enjoyed this training on the voluntary offer letter to homeowner. If there are any additional questions during the completion of this letter, subrecipients should reach out to their General Land Office grant manager. Additional videos covering the other required local buyout and acquisition forms are or will soon be available at the same location you are viewing this one.